Are you ready for another note reading challenge? I know I am. Today, specifically, we are challenging you on reading intervals. If you don't know how to read intervals or you don't know what I'm talking about, the distances between the notes, you can read notes a lot faster that way. Check out the link I have for you in the description. That'll help catch you up. If you didn't see the last challenge video where we read notes on the staff, also check the link in the description and that'll take you to the right place. Your piano teacher Tim here from Piano Lessons on the Web, where we're going to do what? Power up our piano skills and share them with the world. All right, let's take a look right into what we're talking about today. Actually, while I explain this, let me bring this up full screen and get us situated here. Okay, so quick review on intervals. In intervals, the distance between two notes, and you can first of all read notes just by saying like what note or line or space on the staff it is and how high it up, so that's a B. But the other part of it is if you begin to look and recognize the distances between the notes, you can actually read the notes a lot faster. So the first one we're going to talk about is the second. You can identify a second right away because, first of all, they don't match, meaning if the bottom one's a line, the top one's a space. If the top one or the bottom one is a space, the top one's going to be a line. And they are also so close together that they are basically from side to side. You see how they're like that. So I'll show you in a second. Once I get this situated here. Yeah, we got it. All right. So that's a third. You see how when I move it up from the second, that automatically it starts aligning it vertically. That's how every interval is but the second. And that's because with a second, they're so close together that they need to put them side to side, or else it would look really strange and they would overlap. So that's a second. It doesn't matter where it is on the staff. That's always a second, whether it's treble clef, bass clef. A third looks like the beginning of a stacked snowman. The bottom half, middle half right there. And that looks the same no matter where you are. And with a third, they match, meaning if the bottom one is a line, top one's going to be a line. If the bottom one is a space, the top one is also going to be a space. Okay, fourth, they don't match again. So the bottom's a space, top one's a line, vice versa. It looks the same no matter where you are. It's just a little bit bigger, larger than a third. A fifth, they do match. There's a pattern to this, by the way. I don't know if you figured it out. We'll talk in a minute. Where you have space down here, space up here, and then there's actually a space in between. That's just blank. Same thing if you move it to a line. You have line, then you have no line, and then you have line once again. Okay, so that's a fifth. You move it up one more, and that is a sixth. Sixths do not match, meaning you know what I'm about to say. So that's a sixth. And then you have seventh, they match, and octave, they do not match. If you did notice, every even number interval, seconds, fourths, sixths, and eighths, all do not match. So if bottom one's a line, top one's going to be space. If bottom's a space, top one's going to be a line. And all odd number intervals, they do match. So line here, line here, line here, line here. And I think you get the idea. So that's how you identify them by sight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an interval, and I'm going to give you 3 seconds, and then we will talk about what interval that is. So I'm not going to start with a second. That's too easy. How about this one? So what interval do you think this is? Bottom one's a space, top one's a space. So it has to be, I'll give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. If you said fifth, you are indeed correct. Let me get the keyboard up with this here. So you have bottom lines F. And to play a fifth on the piano, it's really easy because what you do is you skip over a note. That's going to be a third and then a fifth. So like that. So if you place your first finger, thumb on the note, generally where your pinky is going to naturally hit, that's going to be a fifth. So long as your hand is not crunched up or anything like that or too far apart. So that's a fifth from F to C. Okay, let's try another one. What about this one? I'm going to give you 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's try it out. What do you think it is? Well, you have a space on the bottom, space on the top. So therefore, it must be an odd number interval, right? It can't be a third, because a third would be the stack snowman kind of thing. A fifth would be the next space up. And then this one must be a seventh. So if you go from F to E, that's indeed a seventh. To count this on the piano keyboard, you count the note you start with and all the notes in between until you get to the note you end with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Just like that. All right, very good. Okay, let's try another one. What about this one? So first question is, do they match? They do not, so it must be an even number interval. 3, 2, 1. Pause the video if you need more time. This is a fourth. You have space on the bottom, line up top, and it can't be a second, right? Because the seconds are side by side like that. And then this is just one up. So whenever you have a start with a space down here, you have that line, that's a second. You move this one up to the next line, that's fourth, and then sixth. So it goes up 2 each time. Back here again. So you have a space on the bottom, space on the top. So it has to be an odd number interval. Can't be a third, right? I'm just kind of walking you through my mental process, because that would be stacked directly on top of one another. This one's a little further apart. So it has to be another fifth. Okay, let's try another one. How about this one? I'm going to give you 3 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1. What is it? This is a fourth. No, a second. Because they're right next to each other, like I said. So this is probably getting easy for you by now. At least hopefully you're getting there. All right, let me try a bunch of intervals. So let me stack them kind of like you would see a chord. Because now we're going to get into more like real life application here. So I'm going to draw some notes here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to figure out the bottom interval from there to there, and then the top interval from the middle to the top there. And then I think what we're going to do is we're going to figure out the entire interval from the bottom to the top. So between these two, the F and the A there, how far apart are those? All right, 3, 2, 1. That is a third. Meaning they're 3 notes apart. So we got that. The middle one to the top one has to be an even number interval since they do not match. And I would say that's a fourth. So you have a third and a fourth. Now we have to figure out what the total distance is right here. And that is from the F to the D. Well, they don't match, so it has to be even, right? They're a little bit further apart, certainly, than some of the other ones we've done. So that is going to be a sixth total. So you have third, fourth, and then sixth. Now you would think it's, so I think Andy has the right idea. And it is a D minor triad. That is correct. D minor in first inversion. Now you would think seventh, right, Laredo? So Laredo's answer for the bottom to the top interval was a seventh. Well, let's take a look at this in more detail. So you have a third down here. You have a fourth up here. You would think, right, that the total would be a seventh, but it's not. It's only a sixth. And that's because you're actually, when you're counting this one and then this one, you're actually counting this note twice, right? Because when you do the entire thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're only counting that once. But when you do the third, 1, 2, 3, you've counted that one. And then you do the fourth, you're actually counting that one again. So that's the discrepancy in why you would think that the intervals would actually add up to the total, but they do not, just because of that. So be careful of that. Actually, you could probably almost always say that it's the intervals added together minus 1. Let's make sure that makes sense, because I am not a math wizard, but I think that would make sense to me. Okay, we have another one. So the bottom interval between the G and the C here has to be a fourth. You know, they don't match, they're a little further apart. And the top one's obviously a third, the beginning of that snowman there. So you have a fourth here, you have a third here, and then total, you have 7, right? Wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the way on the outside of the intervals there. So it adds up that way. Let's try a different one. Let's try one that does not add up to 7. So how about, yeah, I want to keep it to 3 notes for now. So you have obviously a second on the bottom, and then a fourth up top. So does that add up to 6? No, it only adds up to 5, because the difference between G and D is only 5. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, let's really quiz you on these. I'm going to draw 3, no, maybe 4. What are these? What are those, if you know that meme? Okay, so you got the bottom 2 notes, F and A. So they are obviously what? 3, 2, 1. They are a third. And then the difference between the A and the D is what? That's going to be 4. And then the top one is obviously a third again. As you can see, there's a third here, and then fourth, whoa, in the middle there, right there. I know my artistic abilities are impressing all of you. All right, let us try even up top. Let's draw a ton of notes here. Okay, I'm going to give you pause the video if you need it. I'm going to give you 7 seconds for this one. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is it? So you got between these two, clearly a third. Stacked snowman, you know it right away. Between these two, it's obviously an even number interval because they do not match. So that one's going to be a fourth. What about these two? The D and the G here. Well, same thing, right? They don't match. They're not right next to each other, but they're not super far away. So that has to be another fourth. And then how much total? Now, do you add these up? 4 plus 4 is 8. 11. Well, I don't know. Let's see if it's 11 total. So you got F here, and then you got G up here just to kind of isolate those. Well, they don't match, right? So what do you, or they do match, sorry. Space bottom, space top. So you would expect them to be what, an even number or an odd number? Well, if they match, they're going to be an odd number. And in this case, this one is a 9th. Pretty far. This is actually as far as I can possibly reach on the piano. Pathetic for a full-grown adult. But, because I have some students that are way younger than me that can reach like a 10th easily. But hey, what are you going to do? All right, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. So it checks out, a 9th total. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Let's try some more. Let's try some in the bass clef, even though it's the same thing. And then we're going to do something a little bit different after that. You know, we need some larger intervals. I've only been doing really thirds and fourths, which proves my point there. All right, so here we go. Oh, let me make sure you can see it all. Here we go. Okay, so clearly, by the way, whenever you have a triad, you can clearly see that we just have a chord down here. A chord is always made up of stacked thirds. So I'm going to give you 7 seconds. You know, jot down what you think they are. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. So bottom, they're thirds. like I said, they're stacked thirds. So there's another third there. Distance between the bottom and top here is a fifth. Since you have space here, space, or line here, line there. Can't even get my lines and spaces correct. And that's a fifth. Now the question is between this C and this B down here, how far is it total? Well, let's take a look here. Use our reasoning skills. You got a line here, a note on a line up here. Even though it is on a ledger line, it's still on a line. So therefore, this must be an odd number interval. What do you think it is? It's pretty far apart, isn't it? Well, you know a third would be here, fifth, seventh, ninth. You can even do that. Every time you go up a line, you're going up 2. So that is going to be a 9 total. Alrighty. Now what I want you to do, so we're going to move it back. We're going to do either clef, but I think we'll do treble clef for now. Okay, here we go. So now what I want you to do is I'm going to draw 3 notes. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. And you're going to be like, why are you giving us more time? Because what I want you to do is I want you to start finding out what notes these are. Now let's do this first one together. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out what is the bottom note. Well, it's the bottom space of the treble clef. Spaces spell face, so this must be an F right here. Draw it on this side, on the left. Then you got to figure out what these 2 notes are. What I want you to do is do not use your normal, you may have done it already, but do not use your normal like lines and spaces technique for this. Instead, we are going to use our intervals to figure out exactly what these are without necessarily figuring out the notes. So this is where the whole thing comes full circle. So you have F there. Now, what interval are these 2? Now, you're going to have to practice these to get these really good, so practice these every day. But it has to be an even number interval. You got space on the bottom, line on top, so if they don't match, it's even. And then this one has to be, well, it's certainly not a second. It's not a fourth, so it must be a sixth. So what you do on the piano is you find your F. We know that note already. You know that C, where your 5th finger naturally rests, is going to be a 5th. You extend that up really quick. So that is your 6th right there. And then what interval do we have up here? That is going to be a 4th. We've done plenty of those today. So you do 6th, and then from here, you might have to count them out at first. 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. And then try playing all 3 of them. You can use even 2 hands if you want. All right, so that's what we're going to do. You don't really need to actually find the total distance anymore, because by the time we do the 2 intervals together, you will have figured out all of your notes. Okay, so here we go. Let me do this, and we're just going to do this. So what you want to do first is figure out what the bottom note is, A. You know that the next one's a second. And then I'm going to give you 5 seconds to figure out the last one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The last one is 4 notes above that B, so that's going to be an E. So you want to start practicing not only identifying these intervals, but figuring out what notes they correspond to. Because if you get good at this, you can do really neat things with it. You can read notes really, really fast. So if I draw just stacked thirds all the way up, right? Let me keep going. If you get good at counting, what we call counting up thirds, skipping up every other note, I know that this note's an F, A, C, E, G. Uh-oh, we're going off the staff, but we know this is a G, B, D. So if you get good at going up by thirds, going up by fourths, you can actually figure out your notes way faster. All right, we're going to do one right here. Here we go. So I'm going to give you 7 seconds for this one. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, play, if you're in front of a keyboard, play all 3 of these notes. If you're not in front of a keyboard, just in your mind, go over what notes they are. You know the bottom note's F. And then we know that we have actually another 6th here. since they do not match. And then these ones don't match either, so it's another even number. But it's not quite as far. So you have F, D, and then G, just like that. Okay, let's do a couple more. I think you probably are getting the idea by now. And if you're lost, don't worry, because it's all about practice and getting better at these over time. Okay. Hopefully you can see that well enough. Okay, we're going to do, we're doing both clefs here. I'm going to give you, I don't know, 10 seconds. And I want you to find these on the piano keyboard. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's figure them out. So I'm going to find the bottom note, which is C. Let me move this up a little bit. You got C. I know this one's a fifth away. I'm going to read the bottom note G here, the treble clef, and I know that's his third. So right away, I can figure out what these notes are. Really, really easy. What I definitely want you to do is subscribe, because we got more lessons coming out all the time. Check out the playlist of the other music note challenges that we have done. If you don't know how to read intervals, you should check out the link I have put in the description for you. But definitely check out the playlist of the other challenges. There will be more to come. So thanks, everybody. This has been your piano teacher, Tim, and I'll see you at the next lesson. Thank you so much.